Hello, welcome to Phantom Homicide, the Moonlight Murders, the terror of Texarkana.
It really is quite a story, a case that feels, well, less like history and more like something darker, like a ghost story almost, written in blood.
That's a good way to put it.
Because what happened in Texarkana back in 1946, it wasn't just a shock to that town, it really, you could say, it wrote the blueprint for this kind of serial terror in post-war America.
Absolutely. And that's our mission today, really, to dig into the sources, uncover what we can about this chilling 10-week period of violence. We're talking about Texarkana, right? A town literally split down the middle by the Arkansas-Texas state line. This is just after World War II.
Right. People were hoping for things to get back to normal, quiet down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead, they got this nightmare. 8 people attacked over 10 weeks, 5 killed, 3 wounded badly. And all of it blamed on this one figure, the Phantom Killer.
Or the Phantom Slayer, as some called him. And the scale of it, I mean, especially for a relatively small town where people knew each other, it's just staggering.
It paralyzed the place.
Completely. It wasn't just the killings, it was the fear. It shut down the civic life of Texarkana.
So today, we're going deep. We'll go attack by attack, chronologically. Look at the investigation, which was, well, chaotic seems like an understatement.
Oh, definitely. High-stakes chaos is a good description.
And we'll scrutinize the prime suspect. The guy everyone thought did it, but who, legally speaking, walked away from the murder charges.
It's a complex knot of fear, confusion, maybe even some systemic failures.
Right. So let's dive in. Let's unpack this timeline, starting right at the beginning with that first attack. The one that should have been a warning, but wasn't.
A warning that was incredibly ignored by the police at first.
Okay, let's set the scene. It's Friday night, February 22nd, 1946, late, about 11:45 p.m., and the location is crucial here. It's this secluded spot, a lover's lane, out in Bowie County, Texas, but just barely, only about 300 feet from the city limits.
Right. These borderland spots, liminal spaces, often just outside the regular police patrols. Prime territory.
And parked there are Jimmy Hollis, he's 25, and his girlfriend, Mary Jean LeRae, she's 19.
And this choice of location, it immediately tells you something. This probably wasn't just random impulse. The attacker likely knew these spots, knew where young couples went for privacy.
And then he appears.
He does. Materializes right at the driver's side door, shining this blinding flashlight straight in.
But the mask, that's the detail that jumps out, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A white cloth mask.
Yeah.
Described almost like a pillowcase, crude eye holes cut out.
That screams premeditation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This isn't just some random encounter. This guy came prepared.
Exactly. He wasn't just some drunk stumbling by. He had a plan. He was there to control things, to create terror. The sources say Hollis, probably running on adrenaline, tried to say something like, "You've got the wrong guy."
Right.
But the attacker's response was chillingly calm. Something like, "I don't want to kill you, fellow, so do what I say." Then he orders them out of the car.
And the violence starts almost immediately.
And brutally, he tells Hollis to take off his pants, which is just bizarre. Humiliating.
Yeah. And then, bam, strikes Hollis twice on the head with the gun.
And Mary Jean LeRae's description of that sound.
It's haunting. She said it was so loud, so final, she thought he'd been shot.
But it wasn't a gunshot.
No, it was the sound of Hollis's skull fracturing. Multiple times. He was hit so hard his skull was, well, crushed in places. It's frankly amazing he survived. He was hospitalized for days. Multiple fractures.
Just incredible violence right out of the gate. And while Hollis is down, the attack on LeRae, it takes a different but still terrifying form.
Yes, the sources are clear. He didn't physically penetrate her in the conventional sense, but he sexually assaulted her using the gun itself, the cold barrel of the gun, a violation intended to terrify and dominate.
And after that, he tells her to run.
Just like that. Run! And she did. She took off into the darkness, ran about half a mile, somehow found a house and called the police.
Hollis, meanwhile, somehow stumbled back to the road. Yeah, disoriented, skull fractured, but he managed to flag down a passing car. Both survived. But this is where the whole thing starts to go wrong from an investigation standpoint. Fundamentally wrong.
Okay, how so? The descriptions.
The descriptions they gave were completely different. Larry, who had been face-to-face with him during the assault, said he was a light-skinned African-American man.
Okay.
Hollis, though, maybe blinded by the flashlight, definitely suffering severe head trauma. He said that the attacker was a tanned white man, maybe around 30.
That's a major conflict.
A huge conflict. And here's where the bias of the time really poisoned the well. Law enforcement didn't really try to reconcile these accounts.
They didn't?
No. They mostly seemed to focus on dismissing Larry's description. They kept challenging both victims.
Challenging them how? Like they didn't believe him.
Exactly. They seemed convinced that Hollis and Larry knew the attacker.
Yeah.
That this wasn't random, that they were covering for someone. Maybe a jealous boyfriend, a personal dispute gone bad.
So they treated it like a domestic incident, almost. Not a masked stranger attack.
Pretty much. Like a lover's quarrel that got violent. They downplayed the randomness, the mask, the sheer terror of it.
And because of that, no public warning.
No immediate public warning. No alert about a potential masked attacker targeting couples. And crucially, they didn't publicly link this assault to the murders that followed until May 11th.
May. That's nearly 3 months later.
3 months. And by then, the killer had struck again and again and again 4 more times.
So that first warning sign, it wasn't just missed, it was actively discounted.
Systematically discounted.
Yeah.
And that failure, that assumption, it had immediate tragic consequences. If they'd recognized the planning, the violence, the mask, maybe they would have started the kind of manhunt that was needed right then.
Before it escalated.
Before it escalated into murder.
And escalated did. That failure to act, it just left a void. And within weeks, the violence shifted gear. From brutal assault to, well, cold-blooded murder.
Methodical murder. And you see this chilling pattern emerge in the sources, don't you? The attacks are spaced out, 3 to 4 weeks apart.
Right, like a cooling-off period.
Exactly. Almost like the killer was letting the town's fear subside just a bit, letting their guard down before striking again. He'd learned from that first attack, maybe? Refined his approach.
Moving from assault to execution.
Precisely. The first actual homicides happened less than a month after Hollis and Larry were attacked. Hashtag 2.1. The Griffin Moore murders, March 24.
So tell us about these victims. Who were they?
Richard Griffin, he was 29, and Polly Ann Moore, much younger, just 17. They were found dead on a Sunday morning, March 24th.
Done by who?
A passing motorist, again on one of these secluded back roads in Bowie County, in Griffin's car.
And the scene itself. The details are disturbing, suggesting more than just a quick killing.
Very disturbing. Both were fully clothed, which is interesting, but Griffin was found in this awkward position, kneeling between the front seats. His head was down, resting on his crossed hands.
That's odd. And you mentioned something about robbery.
His pockets, they were turned inside out.
Okay, so a robbery motive.
That's what it looked like. But maybe too much like it. It felt staged to some investigators. Too neat. Polly Ann Moore was in the back seat, sprawled face down.
But the really chilling part was found outside the car, right?
Yes. Nearby, police found this patch of earth soaked in blood.
Meaning they weren't killed in the car.
That's the strong implication, that they were forced out, probably at gunpoint, maybe forced to kneel, given Griffin's position later, executed outside, and then placed back inside the car.
Why? To confuse things. Delay discovery.
Possibly both. To mislead investigators about what happened, maybe suggest a different scenario. Both had been shot once, back of the head, with a .32 revolver.
Oh, .32. Okay, that's specific.
Very specific, and that became the immediate focus, the weapon link. Even though, remember, they still hadn't officially connected this back to the Hollis-Larry assault weeks earlier. Hashtag 2.2. The Martin Booker murders, April 14th.
Okay, so March 24th, then almost exactly 3 weeks later, April 14th. Easter Sunday weekend. The killer strikes again.
And this time, it hits the heart of the town. It shatters any remaining illusion of safety.
Because the victims were different. Not just adults, but teenagers. High school sweethearts.
Paul Martin, 16, and Betty Jo Booker, just 15. And the sources really emphasize this. They were popular kids, well-liked, church-going students. Betty Jo Booker was even a former Little Miss Texarkana, an officer in the school band.
So this wasn't an attack on the fringes anymore. This felt personal to the whole community.
It was a profound shock. Utterly profound. They'd been at a regular Saturday night event, a musical performance at the VFW Club, left around 1:30 a.m.
And the crime scene. This one was even more disturbing, more spread out.
It showed an escalation, definitely, an increasing level of, well, malice maybe, and control. It wasn't just one location.
How spread out are we talking?
Very. Paul Martin's body was found first, around 6:30 Sunday morning, lying on the side of a road.
Okay, and Betty Jo.
Her body wasn't found for another 5 hours. And nearly 2 miles away from Paul's body.
2 miles.
2 miles. Posed, lying behind a tree. On her back, fully clothed. But posed how? Her right hand was tucked neatly inside the pocket of her buttoned-up overcoat.
That's incredibly specific.
Ah.
And chilling. What about the cause of death?
Gunshots again. Paul Martin was shot 4 times. Wounds to his nose, back of the neck. Very brutal. Betty Jo was shot twice.
And the car, where was that?
Even further away. Found outside Spring Lake Park, which was miles from either body. Keys still in the ignition.
So the bodies are miles apart. The car is somewhere else entirely. This suggests the killer spent considerable time after the murders, right? Moving the car.
A significant amount of time. It wasn't a quick kill and flee. It was calculated. Designed perhaps to maximize confusion, delay identification, extend the terror.
And the weapon? Did they confirm the link?
They did. Ballistics confirmed it. The same .32 automatic Colt pistol used to kill Griffin and Moore was used to kill Martin and Booker.
So now it's undeniable.
Absolutely undeniable. The horrifying reality sinks in. Texarkana has a serial killer operating right there among them.
And this is the moment the media gives him that name, the name that stuck.
Exactly. The local paper, the Texarkana Gazette, the editor, Calvin Sutton, wanted a name for this guy they couldn't catch. He asks his executive editor, J.Q. Mahaffey, about calling him the Phantom.
And Mahaffey's response?
Apparently it was immediate. Something like, why not? If the SOB continues to elude capture, he certainly can be called a Phantom.
And just like that.
Just like that, the legend was born, the Phantom Killer of Texarkana.
And once that name, the Phantom, hit the streets, combined with the horror of losing those 2 popular teenagers, Texarkana just broke.
Psychologically.
It was like a switch flipped.
Yeah.
This town, where people apparently used to leave their doors unlocked, just descended into this state of mass hysteria. And it lasted for months, all through that summer.
You could almost picture it. The palpable fear.
Oh, it was real. Curfews were put in place, sure. But it's the personal measures people took that really tells the story. The stores, they couldn't keep home defense items on the shelves. We're not just talking a few extra locks sold. Right. The sources describe a complete run on certain things.
A complete sellout. Locks, guns, ammunition, obviously. But also window shades, Venetian blinds, anything to block the view.
People were afraid he was watching, peering in.
Terrified of it. They were literally nailing sheets over their windows, not just pulling the curtains, nailing fabric up, blocking every possible sight line. Some were even using those old screen door braces, wedging them against windows from the inside as extra guards.
Wow, the visual of that. A town barricaded against itself.
And the panic wasn't just contained to Texarkana, it spread. Nearby towns saw huge spikes in sales of weapons, locks, anything security-related.
And what happens when an entire town is armed and terrified?
It becomes dangerous for everyone, not just potential victims of the Phantom. Law enforcement suddenly had this bizarre new problem.
They had to worry about being shot by citizens.
Exactly. Officers knew homeowners were jumpy, armed, peering through windows, so they had to approach houses incredibly carefully, turning on sirens sometimes, flashing headlights, shouting police really loudly, just to avoid being mistaken for the Phantom and getting shot by some panicked resident.
That level of paranoia, it's hard to even imagine. Hashtag tag 3.1, public panic and defensive measures.
And fueling all this was the rumor mill. It wasn't just fear of the known killer, it was fear amplified by misinformation.
Like kinds of rumors.
Oh, everything. Wild stuff. That the killer had been caught secretly, that he was already in jail somewhere else, maybe flown out, that multiple people were involved. It was constant.
And that must have just swamped the police.
Completely. It was a massive hindrance. You had Texas Ranger Gonzalez holding press conferences, basically begging the public to stop spreading rumors, telling them it was pulling officers off real leads to chase down these fantasies.
Sheriff Presley, too. Right. He had to ask people to just be considerate.
Yeah, he pointed out that innocent people were constantly being accused by their neighbors just based on gossip. He looked shifty, or he was out late. The pressure on the police was just immense from every direction. Hashtag tag 3.2, the high-stakes, high-chaos investigation.
So what was the official response like?
Yeah.
Amidst all this panic and rumor?
It was huge. Unprecedented for the time, really. You had city police, county sheriffs from both sides of the state line, Arkansas State Police, the Texas Rangers, even the FBI got involved eventually.
A massive task force, essentially.
Absolutely. They questioned over 200 people. Chased down more than 200 false leads. Just wading through the noise must have been exhausting.
And the community pitched in financially, too, right? That reward fund grew quickly.
Explosively. Started at $500, which was decent money then. Within 10 days, it was over $10,000.
Which is like, what, over $160,000 today?
Somewhere in that ballpark, yeah. It shows you how desperate people were, how unified they were in wanting this guy caught.
But the investigation itself, it had this central figure, didn't it? This Texas Ranger who became the face of the whole thing.
Captain Manuel T. Gonzalez. Lone Wolf Gonzalez. He definitely became the public face, but he was controversial. Highly controversial.
The showman, that was his nickname, wasn't
That's
that?
what they called him. He was accused of, well, liking the spotlight, taking credit for other officers' work, spending maybe a bit too much time cultivating his image, especially with female reporters.
Ah, yes. The Life magazine incident. That story is legendary.
It perfectly captures the chaos, doesn't it? It's after the Starks attack, the final one. Neighbors see strange lights at the farmhouse, think the Phantom's back. Police rush out, surround the place, guns drawn, totally silent, ready for anything.
And instead of the Phantom,
They find Gonzalez inside, with a female reporter from Life magazine posing dramatically for flash photos at the crime scene, while the house is surrounded by tense officers thinking the killer might be inside.
you just can't make this stuff up.
Mm.
But he wasn't all show, right? He did try some actual tactics, some
Yeah.
risky ones.
Oh, incredibly risky. He decided to try and bait the Phantom. He got teenagers, actual teenagers, along with police officers, to sit in parked cars on lovers' lanes as decoys.
Teenagers as bait. Seriously.
Seriously. Sometimes they even used mannequins paired with officers to make it look like a couple. It was basically painting targets on people's backs. A desperate gamble.
And speaking of danger, you mentioned the armed citizens. Vigilantism must have been a nightmare, too.
A constant headache. You had all these people, especially young men, armed and thinking they were going to catch the Phantom. Teenage sleuths, Gonzalez called them.
Which sounds brave, but probably just got in the way.
And was incredibly dangerous. Gonzalez had to issue this really stark warning in the newspaper, basically telling these kids to stop playing detective because it was a good way to get killed. They weren't just policing a murder spree. They were trying to manage a city absolutely consumed by fear and paranoia.
So the investigation is this swirling mix of pressure, panic, and Gonzalez's theatrics. They think they have a pattern. Lovers' lanes, young couples, the .32 caliber pistol, and then the Phantom changes the game completely.
He does, and this shift, it's huge psychologically, for the killer and definitely for the town. The tarot moves from the edges, from those dark roads, right into the home, the supposed sanctuary.
Where did this happen?
An isolated farmhouse, about 500 acres, out in Miller County, Arkansas, maybe 10 miles or so outside Texarkana proper. The victims were a married couple, Virgil Starks, 37, and his wife, Katie, 36.
And this wasn't late at night like the others.
No, relatively early. Before 9 p.m. on Friday, May 3rd, Virgil Starks was just sitting in his armchair reading the evening paper.
And the attack came from outside.
Right through a closed double window behind him, 2 shots, back of the head, an ambush, an execution in his own living room, shattering that ultimate sense of safety.
Horrifying. What did Katie do?
Her first instinct, seeing her husband slumped over, was the telephone. They had one of those old crank phones on the wall. She ran for it, managed to ring the operator twice.
Before he shot her, too?
Before he shot her, too. From the same window, twice in the face.
My God. But she survived.
Miraculously, yes. She collapsed, blinded by her own blood. She said later she tried to get to a pistol they kept in another room, but she was fumbling, couldn't see, too much blood, too much shock.
What happened then? Did he come inside?
She heard him. Heard someone at the back of the house, maybe trying the door, maybe assuming she was dead or dying. She knew she had to get out.
So she ran.
She ran, fled out the front door, barefoot, ran across the road towards her sister's house, but it was dark, empty. She kept going, stumbled to a neighbor's porch, somehow managed to gasp out, "Virgil's dead," before she finally collapsed. Her survival is just incredible. A testament to sheer will, maybe.
Unbelievable ordeal. Now, the key thing here, the detail that really complicates the Phantom narrative. The weapon.
Exactly. This is the crucial discrepancy. The bullets recovered from Virgil Starks, the ones that killed him, they weren't .32 caliber.
What,
Ran .22 caliber, fired from a pistol or maybe an automatic rifle. A completely different weapon than the one used in the Lover's Lane double murders.
Okay, that's a huge difference in physical evidence. So why did everyone, police included, immediately blame the Phantom? Was it just the timing, the fear?
It seems like a mix of things. Definitely pressure. The police needed answers. They needed to show they were pursuing the Phantom. And the style of the attack felt similar, didn't it?
How so?
Unprovoked, targeted, highly controlled despite the change in location, that cold, calculated feel. Plus, they found tire tracks near the farmhouse that seemed similar to tracks found at earlier scenes.
And the motive, or lack thereof.
Right. Money was left untouched. Katie Starks' purse wasn't taken. So the initial unofficial thinking among officers leaned towards sex mania again, like the earlier cases where robbery seemed unlikely or staged. It just felt like the Phantom, even with the wrong gun.
So the narrative stuck, even with conflicting evidence. It kept the fear focused on this single entity.
It did, at least publicly, and certainly in the mind of the town. But internally, that discrepancy bothered investigators. It took a while, but eventually, by November 1948, the official stance changed.
2 years later.
Yeah. Authorities officially stated they no longer considered the Starks murder connected to the two .32 caliber double homicides. But for the people who lived through it, the Starks attack is forever woven into the tapestry of the Phantom's reign of terror.
Okay, so the physical evidence is now muddy. The investigation is chaotic. They're desperate. They turned to something relatively new back then, criminal profiling, trying to figure out who this guy could possibly be.
Right. They needed to understand the mind behind these attacks. They brought in a Dr. Anthony LaPaula. He was a psychologist at the Federal Correctional Institution right there in Texarkana.
And what did his profile suggest?
LaPaula tried to synthesize everything. He theorized the killer was probably older than people might think, mid-30s up to maybe 50.
Okay, and the motivation?
He believed it was driven by a combination of a strong sex drive and sadism, purely about power, control, and inflicting pain.
Did he think the killer was smart?
Very. LaPaula gave him immense credit, actually, called him intelligent, clever, and shrewd. Said he was the type of killer who often isn't caught. He seemed convinced the Phantom worked alone, planned meticulously.
LaPaula even had a theory about the shift to the farmhouse attack, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
He suggested it wasn't random, but a calculated move. The Phantom knew the lovers' lanes were now heavily patrolled, knew the police were looking for him there, so he adapted, changed tactics, chose a different kind of vulnerable target.
That makes the Phantom sound less like some random monster and more like a thinking adversary, setting the police response.
Exactly, a ghost who watches the hunters. But this profile, it also contained this really problematic element, something that ties back to that very first attack, the Hollis-Luray assault.
The conflicting descriptions.
Yes. LaPaula was asked specifically about Luray saying the attacker was black and Hollis saying white. LaPaula flatly dismissed Luray's account.
On what grounds?
On explicitly racist grounds, frankly. He stated, and this is a quote, that he didn't believe the killer was a black man because, in general, Negro criminals are not that clever.
Wow. Just laid out like that.
Laid out like that. It perfectly encapsulates how that initial bias, that refusal to seriously consider Larry's eyewitness account, handicapped the investigation from day one. It potentially steered them away from viable leads for months.
So the profile didn't necessarily lead them directly to someone, but eventually, good old-fashioned police work, focusing on local crime patterns, did point towards a prime suspect.
Uwal Swinney. He enters the picture. Swinney was 29 at the time, and he was what you'd call a career criminal. Long history, car theft, counterfeiting, assault. He knew the system.
And how did they connect him to the murders?
Through the car thefts, actually. An Arkansas State Police detective named Max Tockett noticed this pattern. Stolen cars seemed to pop up around the times of the murders. He put a stakeout on a recently stolen car, and that led them into Swinney's orbit.
But the real breakthrough came from someone close to him, right? His wife.
Peggy Swinney. She was arrested, ironically, while trying to pick up one of these stolen cars, and under questioning, she cracked.
She confessed that Ewell was the Phantom.
She did, in great detail, apparently. Specifically named him as the killer of Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker. And crucially, she provided details about the crimes that hadn't been released to the public. Things only the killer, or someone the killer told, would know. Like where some of the victim's missing belongings might be found.
Okay, that's huge. A detailed confession from his wife, including inside knowledge. What other evidence did they have against Swinney?
It started piling up. Circumstantial, yes, but compelling. First, Swinney himself kept making these suggestive comments to the police. Things like, "You want me for more than stealing cars," or "You got me for more than stealing cars," implying he knew they suspected him of something much bigger.
Like he was almost daring them.
Maybe. Or maybe just unable to keep quiet. Then there was the physical link, potentially, to the Starks murder. Investigators searched his room, they found a work shirt, and the shirt had a laundry mark. S-T-A-R-K.
Stark, like Virgil Stark.
Exactly. And in the pocket of that shirt, they found metallic slag, tiny bits of metal. They compared it to samples taken from Virgil Stark's welding shop, and it matched.
Wow. That puts him right there, potentially, in the victim's environment.
It's highly suggestive. And then, maybe the most damning piece related to the .32 caliber murders, Swinney had recently sold a gun.
What kind of gun?
A .32 automatic Colt pistol. Sold it in a craps game shortly after the Martin Booker murders. The exact make and caliber used in those killings and the Griffin Moore killings.
Okay, so wife's detailed confession, inside knowledge, his own suggestive statements, physical evidence potentially linking him to Starks, and he sold the right type of gun used in the other murders.
Wow.
Why wasn't he convicted? Why did he walk free on the murder charges?
It all came crashing down because of Peggy, his wife.
She took back her confession.
She recanted completely. Her story changed multiple times. She started to seem incredibly unreliable as a witness. Maybe she was afraid of UL, who is known to be violent. Maybe she feared legal trouble herself. We don't know for sure.
But the biggest legal hurdle was
Spousal privilege. Back then, and still largely today, you cannot compel a wife to testify against her husband in court, or vice versa.
so without her testimony.
Without her testimony, all that other evidence, the gun sale, the shirt, his comments, it was all circumstantial. Strong, maybe, but likely not enough to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt for capital murder, especially with Peggy now denying everything.
So the police had their man, they were sure of it, but they couldn't make the murder charges stick. What did they do?
They took what they could get, a pragmatic solution, if maybe not a just one. They focused on his long history of crime, particularly the car thefts.
And charged him as a habitual offender.
Exactly. Based on his prior convictions and the recent thefts, they got him convicted as a habitual criminal. The sentence was life imprisonment.
So effectively, they took the Phantom off the streets, just not for the murders themselves.
That seems to have been the thinking. Investigators later suggested it was basically an unofficial plea deal. Swinney, likely terrified of the electric chair if the murder case somehow went forward, didn't fight the habitual offender conviction too hard. He accepted the life sentence for car theft to avoid the potential death penalty for murder.
It secured safety for the town, but denied them closure, denied them the official answer. Did Swinney serve life?
No, he actually won an appeal years later in 1973 and was released.
Released. After all that.
Hmm.
Did he ever face justice for the murders after release?
Never. He lived for another 2 decades, died in 1994 in a nursing home in Dallas, never convicted of the Texarkana moonlight murders. Hashtag 5.3. Other intriguing and dark leads.
Swinney was clearly the main focus, the guy they thought did it. But in an investigation this chaotic, they must have chased down other leads too. Some strange ones.
Oh, plenty. The files are full of dead ends and weird possibilities. One of the most tragic and haunting was the case of a young man named Henry Booker Tennyson. They called him Duty.
What happened with him?
He was only 18, a student at the University of Arkansas. In 1948, 2 years after the murders, he died by suicide.
Okay, and the connection.
He left a note, a confession, claiming he was responsible for the murders of Booker, Martin, and Virgil Starks.
A suicide confession. That sounds significant.
It does. And there was a slight connection. He apparently played trombone in the same high school band as Betty Jo Booker. But investigators looked into it hard. They found zero physical evidence linking him to any of the crime scenes. Plus, a friend provided him with a solid alibi for the night Virgil Starks was killed.
So they concluded it wasn't credible.
The consensus was that it was likely a disturbed young man seeking attention, maybe notoriety, in a really tragic way, not the real Phantom.
Any other strange confessions? What
Right.
about the soldier?
Ah, yes, Ralph Bellman. He was 21, an ex-Army Air Force machine gunner. He hitchhiked all the way to Los Angeles, walked into a police station there and said he thought he might be the Phantom.
Why?
He claimed he'd woken up from some kind of fugue state, like a blackout, had his rifle was missing, thought maybe he'd done terrible things without remembering.
Did Gonzalez buy it?
Not for a second. Gonzalez apparently dismissed it pretty quickly. Bone had supposedly confessed to other killings before that didn't match the timeline or facts in Texarkana. Seemed like another unreliable, possibly disturbed individual.
And there were these odd, almost peripheral mysteries too, weren't there? Like Betty Jo Booker's saxophone?
Yeah, that's a strange detail that lingers. She was carrying her alto sax the night she was killed. She'd just played at the VFW club. The sax vanished from the scene.
Vanished. For how long?
For 6 months. Then it just turned up, found lying in some underbrush near where her body had been discovered.
Did they ever figure out what happened to it? Or who took it?
Not definitively. There's an early lead about some guy arrested down in Corpus Christi, a supposed saxophone peddler found with bloody clothes, but he was cleared. So the missing saxophone just remains this weird, unanswered question mark.
And finally, there's the story of the unidentified body found on the railroad tracks during all this madness.
Earl Cliff McSpadden. His body was found north of town in May 1946, right in the thick of the Phantom Panic. The condition was gruesome, mutilated by a train.
But the key finding was
The coroner's jury determined he was already dead before he was placed on the tracks. The verdict was death at the hands of persons unknown.
which immediately fueled rumors.
Oh, absolutely. Given the timing and the mystery, people started whispering. Was McSpadden secretly the Phantom's sixth victim, killed and dumped to look like an accident? Or was he the Phantom himself? Had the killer committed suicide in a way that would obliterate his identity? It just added another layer of myth and uncertainty to the whole thing. Hashtag OutTROO.
So when all the dust settled, when the panic subsided, the identity of the Phantom Killer, the person who terrorized Texarkana in the spring of 1946, remains unknown. Officially unknown.
The case is still technically open, believe it or not, but realistically it's cold, ice cold.
But the legacy of that fear, it's still there, isn't it?
Absolutely. Those murders changed Texarkana forever, shattered that post-war innocence, created this deep vein of paranoia and suspicion. It's still considered one of America's most notorious unsolved serial killer cases.
And it's inspired books, documentaries, and that movie.
The Town That Dreaded Sundown, the original 1976 film, it's become a cult classic. They still screen it in Texarkana around Halloween sometimes. It's cemented the Phantom legend in popular culture.
And the case resonates beyond Texarkana, even beyond the U.S., doesn't it? People draw comparisons.
They do. You often hear it compared to the Zodiac killer case in California, the targeting of couples in isolated spots, the mystery, the taunting nature, perhaps. Some even draw parallels to cases like the Monster of Florence in Italy. Multiple victims, confusing evidence, no definitive resolution. These unsolved cases have a unique power to haunt us.
But that shadow of Yul Sweeney, it never really goes away, does it?
It always hangs there. The prime suspect. The man linked by circumstance, by his wife's initial confession, by the gun, by the shirt slag. The man jailed for life on a technicality who then got out.
And who died years later, in 1994.
Passed away in a nursing home in Dallas. Never officially punished for those 5 deaths.
So that leaves us with that final, really unsettling thought, doesn't it? Did the actual Phantom Killer, the source of all that terror, just quietly live out his days and die in that Dallas nursing home? Did the monster simply fade away?
Or did the real Phantom, if it wasn't Sweeney, truly vanish without a trace back in '46? Did he just stop, move on, become a ghost in reality as well as name?
It's a chilling possibility either way. That the terror either ended with a quiet death decades later, or that it simply stopped, leaving the ghost to wander free. A true phantom.
A mystery that still casts a long shadow over that town and over the history of crime in America, a time when an entire community genuinely dreaded sundown.
Okay, so we hope you liked our today's discussion. For more such discussions, subscribe to our channel, Phantom Homicide.